Hello, class. Today we are starting to name angles and angle pairs. How do I identify angles, angle pairs, and types of angles is our essential question. My learning intention, I'm learning to name angles, use angle addition, and find missing measures in angles pairs. So, right now, pause the video and do the warm-up. With this segment here, we'll find the slope, the actual and the approximate length, and the midpoint of this segment. Pause the video now. Okay, there's different ways you can do it. The slope is fairly easy. So this point is 1, 5. This point is 2, -2. And remember, our slope is delta y over delta x. Okay, 5 minus -2 over 1 minus 2. 5 minus -2 is 5 plus 2, which is 7, over 1 minus 2 is -1, so this is -7. So our slope is -7. To find our length, so we're looking at the square root of 1 minus 2 squared plus 5 minus -2, quantity squared. Okay, because I have to have the actual length, I'm going to see what number this is underneath the radical. So parenthesis, 1 minus 2, close and square it, plus 5 minus -2, close it, square it, and I get, whoops, put a wrong thing in. So I put a plus sign instead, I left out my parenthesis, and it is 50. So this is the square root of 50. Okay, 50. What are my factors of 50? I can divide it by 2, I get 25. I divide it by 5, I get 5. I divide it by 5, I get 1. So I've got a pair of 5s, and 2 is left underneath. 5 square root of 2. So the square root of 50 is approximately 7.07. Okay, now what about the midpoint? Midpoint is the easy one. You add them together. It's a capital M. 1 plus 2 divided by 2. 5 plus -2 divided by 2. Okay, 1 plus 2 is 3 divided by 2 is 3/2. 5 plus -2 is 3 divided by 2 is 3/2. So the point is 3/2 and 3/2. 1 1/2, 1 1/2. So you go over 1 1/2, go up 1 1/2, and it would be about right here. Okay, any questions over the slope, the distance formula, simplifying a radical, or midpoint? If you're still struggling, go back over previous videos. Okay, so when you name an angle, you can do it with 1 point or you can do it with 3 points. If you are using 1 point, you use the vertex. The vertex is right here where they come together. So this is angle A. It has to be a capital letter. You always use capital letters for your points. 3 points. They must have the vertex in the middle. So as you're looking at this, you can see quickly that there are 2 different ways of writing the same angle with 3 points. If I start with B, this would be angle BAC. Or if I started with C, it would be angle CAB. Both are equally right, which means that you can do it either way. Or you can do it the third way with the vertex only. You can use the vertex only as long as it is not butted up against another angle, because then you wouldn't know which one you were talking about. Okay, and that brings us to supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are angles whose measures add up to what? Do you remember? I'll give you a hint. It's a straight line. It would be 180 degrees. Okay, so if we're going to find this missing measure, we know that this is 180 degrees. So we will start off with 127 degrees plus the measure of angle A is equal to 180 degrees. To be able to solve, I've got to subtract 127 degrees from both sides. So the measure of angle A is equal to, so that would, if I use my calculator, 180 minus 127, which gives me 53. And that is 53 degrees. Make sure you use your units. You can measure angles in degrees, or you can measure them in radians. So you have to designate what you're measuring them in. Okay, if you're still unsure, back up the video and watch it again. Okay, so supplementary add up to 180 degrees. Complementary add up to 90 degrees is correct, a right angle. Okay, so I'm looking at here. It says find the missing angle measures of the following angles. Given that the measure of angle 1 is 22 degrees. Find the measure of angle 2. That's this one here. So I know the 22 degrees plus the measure of angle 2 is going to equal 90 degrees. So to solve, I'm going to subtract 22 from both sides. And the measure of angle 2 is equal to, so that will be 68 degrees. Always check your math, because sometimes even if we get in a hurry, we could do it wrong, and it is 68 degrees. Terminology. Angle BAC or angle A is the angle itself. So both of these are ways of identifying the angle that we talked about at the beginning of the lesson. If we've got the M in front of it, it means the measure of. angle A. That's what it means. So if there's nothing out front, it's just the angle itself. Put the M out front, and it means the measure of whatever angle you're looking at. Okay, vertical angles are what? Well, let's see. These are vertical angles. Let's see if we can figure out what the relationship is between vertical angles. So first thing you always want to do, I'm going to call this Y and I'm going to call this Z. Okay, so I know that this angle plus this angle form a straight line. So the first thing I'm going to say is 105 degrees plus the measure of angle Z is equal to 180 degrees because they form a linear pair. The measure of angle Z is equal to 75 degrees. That's by subtraction. Okay. Now, I know that this is 75, so I'm going to put 75 degrees here. Now, let's look at these two angles. They form a straight line. So I know that 75 degrees plus the measure of angle X is equal to 180 degrees. Once again, they're a linear pair. They're two angles that form a line, linear pair. Okay, I'm going to subtract 75 from both sides. So the measure of angle X is equal to 75 degrees. And that is by subtraction. So if I'm looking, I know that this angle and X are the same. So if I call this angle W, I know that angle W is congruent to angle X. So what do I know about vertical angles? They're also vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent. And vertical angles are the ones that are on opposite sides of intersecting lines. Any questions? So we know that these two angles add up to 180. So if this is 105, this is 75. These two angles add up to 180. So if this is 75, this one must be 105 also. So opposite angles there are congruent. Okay. Acute angles. We need to know what acute and obtuse and right are. Acute angles are angles whose measure is less than how many degrees? 90 degrees. Obtuse angles are angles whose measure is between 90 degrees and 180 degrees. I've got the degree symbol there, so I don't really need to write it. And then a right angle are angles whose measure is exactly 90 degrees. I know I'm successful when I can identify angle pairs and find missing measures. So, angles, terminology, and special pairs. That is your summary. So when you look at this, if you think terminology and you look back up here, okay, I know what it means, then you're doing good. We had all kinds of special pairs in here we talked about. Linear pair, supplementary, complementary. Do you know that? If not, please watch the video again.